Now welcome to another Battle of the Heroes and Villains, where this time we'll be taking a look at the results of the poll for Sabine Wren, the redo results in the wake of the Ahsoka series, I should say. We'll then be comparing those results to her previous ones before seeing where she used to and now ranks among the best Star Wars characters of all time. But before any and all that, you can already nominate and or vote for which character we do next by responding to my pinned comment below with a name or voting with a thumbs up if the character you would like to see is already listed there. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the winner and the character we do next. Alright, and now on to the results, where we'll see that only 4% of voters gave Sabine an A, 24% then went with a B, 41% of people then thought she was a C-tier character, which left 17% to give her a D, and a final 14% that went with an F. And as you'll see on your screen now, before this revote, which is of course again happening in the wake of her appearance in the Ahsoka series, Sabine Wren was in 53rd place with a score of 3.67, but after we do all the math on the new poll, she drops all the way down to 68th place with a score of 2.87, and finds herself 0.05 of a point behind Jar Jar Binks. And just like with the Ahsoka poll last week, how far she fell from the top 10 all the way down to 52nd place, I do think this is probably a bit harsh. I don't think Sabine should be quite this low. Instead, I think this is, or says more about how frustrated or annoyed some fans get when characters are reused, and perhaps the characterization feels off or they have nothing new brought to the table for them. Well, other than giving her the Force now, which for many I think was not cause to celebrate or to score her higher. There were plenty of comments that expressed just how much they did not like this idea. And speaking of the comments, let's now get to those, but after I quickly once again just say thank you to everyone who votes, comments, and watches these or any of my videos. Also a special thank you to everyone who supports my channels over on Patreon and makes my Discord one of the best places around to talk some Star Wars. And now on to the comments, where we will once again start with the highest rated one left on the poll, which this time came to us from Evan Moore, who said, "I found her character arc in Ahsoka extremely frustrating. She is single-handedly responsible for Thrawn returning to threaten the galaxy far, far away, yet Ezra, the person who sacrificed a decade of his life to take Thrawn off the board, never finds out her culpability. Furthermore, her being stranded in the other galaxy means that she doesn't have to deal with any of the fallout from her decision." And I think off-screen between episodes 7 and 8 that Ezra had to have found out from Sabine that she is essentially responsible for all of this, right? She had to have told him. Though sure, Ahsoka plays her part as well. I don't think Sabine is 100% to blame, but yeah, it does play a pretty big part in that. Anyway, especially after Ahsoka shows up at the end of that 7th episode, and how many times during that particular episode Ezra asks Sabine what is going on, asks how she found him and all that, and she keeps saying it's complicated, and how he talks about how he wants to go home multiple times. After all that, he would insist to know what is going on and how they found him. He'd have to ask questions when they tell him that now we have to stop Thrawn from getting back to the other galaxy. There's just no way they didn't tell Ezra the truth. And I mean, they wouldn't lie to him about it, would they? Because if they did, not only does that kind of just destroy any and all integrity Ahsoka and Sabine have, but that's also something we'd need to know, because you'd really think that'd be some kind of big deal later on, right? Maybe when he encounters Thrawn and Thrawn tells him the truth at some point down the road in the story. And you would think whenever and however he did learn the truth about how they actually found him, he would be pretty pissed off at them. He's going to be really mad that they lied to him. Even still, you'd think he'd be pretty mad that they came for him in the first place, that they came to bring him home, but at the same time risked all but guaranteeing Thrawn getting back as well. After all, there's a reason why Sabine is hesitant to tell him, and that's because she knows Ezra is almost certainly going to be upset by all of this, as he should be. And yet, the show never addresses that. What in all reality should have been one of the greatest moments of conflict for Sabine, probably the greatest moment of conflict other than making the choice in the first place, the show entirely skips over it. And though yeah, I said how far she dropped maybe a bit harsh, there was still definitely a good reason or reasons to drop her after the show. She should have fallen in the rankings after this. One of which being they took the easy way out with her when it came to pretty much everything with Ezra. Despite again the show even setting it up with her hesitancy to tell him, why did you set all that up to give us no payoff whatsoever? But then again, this wasn't the only reason some felt her score should drop. Which now brings us to this comment from Foley Bro Hollows, who said, To me, Sabine comes off as a fan-created character. She's cool, she's ex-Empire, she has a complicated family past, she's a graffiti artist, she's a Mandalorian, she's an explosive expert, and now she's a Jedi too. There's also this one from Kraken Rider, who said, "In Rebels, she was a part of the team by being a key part of nearly every mission. She was the mechanic, marksman, demolitionist, and a necessary member of their missions. When I watched Rebels, she was special in a way that was different from other Rebel characters. In Ahsoka, it felt like she lost her personality, lost those aspects that made her feel like a unique character. Apparently, you need to be a Force and lightsaber wielder to be a significant character." And funny enough, I had it pointed out to me not long ago that in the original video we did for Sabine, where the topic of how much she had done or become at such a young age, keeping in mind she's only a teenager in Rebels, where that topic had already come up, I said at that time in that video that Rebels had made her everything but a Jedi, and, well, now it seems like they fixed that. And look, setting aside any argument about how the Force works and if Sabine ever showed any signs of Force sensitivity before any of this, or showed it in Rebels, just not worrying about any of the details behind the how, let's just look at the why. Why do you make Sabine a Jedi or give her Force powers when she was already good at so many other things? Because one of the things it does is, I don't want to say necessarily call into question, but it kind of makes you re-examine the character and everything she's done before, instead of just being an extremely talented Mandalorian who accomplished more by the age of 19 than most will in a lifetime. Now we have to ask if all of that was just because she had the Force in her somewhere down deep, and that's what is responsible for it. Even though, sure, the show kind of implies or kind of tries to go out of its way to say she had never tapped into any of that before. But even still, it's nice to have characters in Star Wars that are just good at something without having the Force to explain why they're good at it. It's kind of nice and cool to know that, say, Mandalorians can train enough to go toe-to-toe with a Jedi, potentially in combat. And all of this that they've done with Sabine is almost like, say, finding out that in Marvel, in the MCU, that Tony Stark actually had a supercomputer for a brain the whole time, and that explained his intelligence. Or that Black Widow had fallen into the proverbial radioactive goo as a child, and that's why she's so good at combat and other things that she is. Sometimes adding more to a character actually takes away from them, and I feel that's the case here with Sabine and giving her Force powers now. And I think many others feel the same based off these results and just the number of people in the comments who brought it up and how they thought it was a terrible, terrible decision to give her the Force. That when everyone is special, no one is. Alright, and next up here we have this comment from Kernan Andrews, who said, "The F grade is absolutely no reflection on the actor, but is awarded in the basis of the character of Sabine, who was a distraction and intrusion into what should have been Ahsoka's story." And you know, that's a pretty good point. I do think that some feel she kind of stole the show from Ahsoka, and I don't mean in terms of stole the spotlight because she outshined her or was just better than her or anything quite like that, though you could argue she was. But simply that the show was more about Sabine than it was about Ahsoka, and that was annoying to some who just, actually wanted a show about Ahsoka. Like I said at the top, and fair or not, but I don't think this is entirely just a 100% objective rating of the character Sabine Wren, one that looks at her from Rebels and now the Ahsoka series and is basing it off everything we've gotten from her just overall. I think this is more a condemnation of the show and how she was used in it, which isn't to say again that I don't think she deserved to fall after it. But 14% of people giving her an F feels like quite a lot. That feels, again, harsh, or maybe it's coming from those who only saw her in the Ahsoka series. I do have to keep that in mind as well. That, as I always say, the criteria for judging is completely up to you or what you know about the characters. And so yeah, in this case, I think there are probably those only basing this off the Ahsoka series because that's all they have ever seen her in, and she didn't exactly make a good first impression. Or there are those who are upset at the character for other reasons for what she was like in the Ahsoka series that we've kind of gone over. In other words here, harsh or not, this is now her official score. This is where she is ranked in our Battle of the Heroes and Villains. Alright, and speaking of those who haven't seen Rebels, let's now get to a few final comments before wrapping this up, starting with this one from Bradical, who said, "I haven't seen Rebels, so just going off what was in Ahsoka, the fact that she makes a decision that puts millions to billions of lives in the galaxy at risk, and all that is basically said to her is, 'Ya did good, kid,' plus her showing no signs of regret, remorse, or guilt for what she's done completely ruined her for me. I'm not saying she should be condemned for what she did, I understand why she did it, but all the future blood that will be on her hands should be a massive weight on her shoulders. And she doesn't even tell Ezra what she did. I'm assuming, since we don't see what he's told, really soured her character for me, low D. Then we have this one from Aaron Clift, who said, "She was well acted in Rebels and Ahsoka, but there were too many glaring inconsistencies between her characterizations in the two shows that weren't properly explained. She had enough good moments that I gave her a B-." Next up, this one from Matt Weber, WA, who said, "Making her Force sensitive hurts the character in retrospect. She was cool because she was doing Jedi things like fighting with the Darksaber and keeping up with Shin, despite not having the Force. Giving it to her makes her weirdly boring." We also have this one from Paul Ridgway, who said, "Sabine is like when people make their first D&D character and put too many traits and the character ends up being a mess. And Filoni is the bad writer who has to make the character so OP and capable, he takes away their chance for growth." We then move on to this one from Scoth Individual, who said, "A for Rebels, F for Ahsoka. Sabine's character took a 180-degree swing from what she was in Rebels. She had already established herself as competent, faced her demons of helping the Empire, and then redeemed herself. She had a completed character arc and shown herself to be strong, compassionate, and emotionally stable. She was ready to move on to a greater stage of development, not be reduced to a doubtful and directionless essence, wallowing in apathy and rejection over an apprenticeship in Force use that the character neither needed nor was even remotely capable of previously, just so that Ahsoka could have an apprentice that was not even necessary to advance the story. It would have made more sense for Sabine to remain the capable badass that she was and have Ahsoka take on Shin Hati as an apprentice after the events of the story. It was lazy writing and many Rebels characters suffered for it." And finally, this one from Lord Burrito, who said, "Really have to give her a C. As a general character, she fit very well into the Star Wars universe. A Mandalorian with a troubled family history, a younger hero who's continuing to grow into her better self, and someone who's very passionate about her craft and loves her friends, whom she'll call her family. At this point, she'd be a high B, but unfortunately things began taking a turn recently when she became more in tune with her Force abilities. I think this part of her was very rushed. I was okay with her wielding the Darksaber and playing with a lightsaber, but blatantly unlocking her Force abilities was a mistake in my eyes. One episode she can't even move a cup, the next she's Force pushing her friend up an Imperial Star Destroyer. I want to believe she has potential going forward. She's a very unique character, but the writing for her recent appearances has not done her so well. I'll keep an open mind for the future though. She has to be done right if this is gonna stick." Well, that's going to be all I got for you this time. Now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you think of the character Sabine Wren, or tell us what you think of what I or anyone else had to say about her here in this video. Or, of course, you can always nominate and or vote for which character we'll do next. Just respond to that pinned comment below. Either way, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.